Welcome into another Whoosh Wednesday, obviously released later in the week, but that's okay. Between the holiday and travel and whatnot, got a little delayed, but I wanted to make sure I checked in with everybody. If you haven't had a chance to check out my shorts recently, please do. They kind of relate back to this video. I recently traveled down to Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida, and I wanted to talk a little bit today about some of the tie-in comics that they've actually come out with to help enhance your experience in both Disney World and Disneyland and some of the things they have going on there. So, there are four titles that I can think of that tie directly into either the rides or the themed areas of Disney World. So let's start with the ones that tie only into the rides and not necessarily the world. You have Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, which is a reimagining of the Tower of Terror ride in Disneyland, California. Really awesome ride. Essentially, the Guardians are captured by the Collector, and Rocket tries to enlist you to help break them out. You do the whole Tower of Terror up down um, part of the ride. It's really cool. It's really fun, and the comic book kind of connects back to that and explains some of that story a little bit more. I'm not a big person on giving away spoilers. I don't like to do that. I don't want to ruin too much, but reading the comic was a lot of fun. Helps tie in some of what's going on there, and something really cool for Mission Breakout is if you are there around Halloween time and you can go back in at night for like the Oogie Boogie Bash. Um, they retheme it as after everything has happened on the ride, so you get to see a whole different aspect of the ride. I know when my wife and I went out there, we she hates Tower of Terror. Absolutely loved Mission Breakout though. We rode that ride probably 4 to 5 times. We did the rethemed version of it at night. It's really cool, and it's really awesome. Some of the stuff they have in the collector's collection. You get to see some really cool things like Beta Ray Bill's Stormbreakers in there, or a version of it, or something that looks very close to it. But there's also some cool like Disney related things in there. So definitely, if you're gonna go check out the ride, make sure to check out everything around you. The whole thing is worth absolutely checking out and trying to find some of the Easter eggs they put in there that relate back directly to Disney. Um, the next one that relates directly to a ride again is Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind in Walt Disney World in Florida. And what's important about that is Universal owns the East Coast theme park rights to a lot of Marvel characters like Spider-Man, Hulk, I believe Fantastic Four, Captain America. I don't know 100% on Iron Man. Um, but Disney is trying to expand some of their Avengers stuff into the East Coast, or Marvel stuff into the East Coast, and one of those properties they have to do that with is Guardians, because at the time Guardians was probably sea level at highest when they made the deal with Universal. And don't get me wrong, Universal's, I believe it's Islands of Adventure that has the Marvel area. Totally cool, totally worth checking out too if you're happen to be in the Orlando area and you want to check out Universal. Awesome, pretty cool area to check out too. Um, but back to Cosmic Rewind. It's really cool. It's set in Epcot. It's called the Other Worlds Showcase because Epcot is all about um, the prototype community of tomorrow is what Epcot stood for before it just became Epcot, its own standalone word. And then they have the World Showcase around the lake where you can go to upwards of 9 countries, I believe. Mexico, Germany, France, England, China, Japan, the U.S. for some odd reason. I don't know. Morocco, Canada, lots of countries in there. But that's the World Showcase, and Xandar, being the other worlds, well, being another world altogether, would be part of the Other World Showcase, and it's all this whole bridge between Xandar and Earth and trying to better relations between the two of them. And basically, you get beamed up to a Xandarian ship. You get to like talk like well, not talk to, because you don't really interact, but you have a video where they're talking to you about the whole experience, and something happens and a piece of the ship gets stolen. Essentially, you have to go back in time, sort of, and that's this whole indoor coaster with a story going on at the same time. It's really, really cool. It's really, really awesome. Um, and the the tie-in comic helps connect that story there as well. So definitely do that. And it's hard because it's only a single ride, so the books don't necessarily provide as much detail into the ride, because you don't want to ruin the ride with just the book. But it's okay. That's okay. What's really cool though is they do have some really cool celebrity cameos on Cosmic Rewind, that are pretty cool too. So definitely make your way to Epcot to check out that ride if you can. And just a little tip: if you like pork egg rolls at all, the best food deal you can get is in Epcot. You get 2 pork egg rolls that are probably as wide as a quarter and as like this wide ish for $5.75. It's the best meal deal in all of Disney. Best value for your dollar. So just check that out. And if you happen to like alcoholic beverages, I'm not a big person of them, but I do have one when I go to Epcot. The slushy in France, 100% recommend that. So those are the 2 books that tie only into the rides. Now, Disney has started theming some of their areas after some things related to the properties they own. And the first one that I want to bring up is Avengers Campus, which you're seeing pop up in a lot of their parks globally. The first one I had the chance to experience was in Disneyland, California. It's really, really cool. The second one I've had the chance to experience was actually in Disneyland Paris. There's some similar theming among the rides. One of them is the Web Ride, which is a Spider-Man themed ride where you kind of shoot webs like this and go back and forth. You can get some accessories for it, which, side note, give me 1 second. You can get they'll help you in the game. Like the accessories will help you do better in the game. And one of them I actually happened to have bought when I was in Paris because I thought it looked really, really cool. And it was a Black Panther themed one, which I thought was awesome. So the whole point of the game is you want to try to capture as many things as possible. So you can either do it that way in silent mode, like if you're on the ride, or you can do it where it'll actually do that. So pretty cool. I thought it looked awesome, so I wanted to pick it up because I was like, oh, that's a really cool like piece of Black Panther tech. So yeah, Avengers Campus has a lot of different things. There are some changes between at least the 2 I've experienced. Avengers Campus in Disneyland, California only happens to have the web ride right now. They do kind of benefit from being within close proximity of Mission Breakout, so you kind of have 2 in that sense. But nothing crazy there. There are some cool places like Pim's Test Kitchen, which they've done some really cool things with food there. Sometimes like the egg is really small, the bread will be really big, so on and so forth. Some of the drinks are really cool as well. And they created a tie-in book about the Worldwide Engineering Brigade, which I'm not sure if you can see on my shirt, but Worldwide Engineering Brigade, and it's the smartest people in Marvel. So in the comics, the brigade consists of Peter Parker, Harley Keener, Dorian Green, Lunel Lafayette, and sort of Spider-Man, I guess. There is a small tie-in there where Peter has to keep kind of running off to cover himself because no one there knows that he is Spider-Man. But you do have the Spider Bots, which are part of the ride. They come into the thing, into the comic book. They actually travel to other web branches in the comic book too, so that ties into them having the Avengers campuses all over the world. It's actually a really, really cool, fun tie-in, and the ride is really, really awesome. And like I said, some of the restaurants are, ah, chef's kiss. They're amazing. Um, I got to do the test kitchen in France as well, set up a little bit differently, whereas the one in California is made to order. The one in Disneyland Paris was a buffet style. Um, the food was delicious, though. I have to give them that. There's some really cool things where like they shrunk down what looks to be beer mugs and made a flight of beer from it, which is pretty a cool thing to keep. They had test beakers for beverages in California that had Pimtech on them. They also had like the little discs that you can either shrink or enlarge things with as like colored things to throw in there, or the Pim particle tubes, which same thing. So they did a lot of really cool theming things there. One of the things they had was a street food cart in Disneyland, California that served shawarma, which I had never had shawarma before. And you know, at the end of Avengers, Iron Man's like, "Let's go get some shawarma." So that was really really cool to try. Trying to think. Now, one of the cool things that's different about Disneyland Paris compared to Disneyland California is they actually have Avengers Assemble roller coaster in Disneyland Paris, which they do not have in California. And that roller coaster itself is actually like a retheme of Rock and Roller Coaster in Disney World and Florida. So same technology, same kind of ride, but really really cool to see the different part of it. Like to see it themed differently, I should say, not a different part of it. You don't see anything different. But the theming is different, so you obviously have a different story going with it, and you have Captain Marvel, Iron Man, and a lot of people make appearances in that video. They don't actually have a tie-in comic book directly to that. They just have the web one, which ties into the web ride and kind of the different Avengers campuses being placed all over the world. But the comic itself is really cool. It's fun. It's definitely a lighter story with a more child-friendly theme to it, so that's really fun. So definitely check that out. Even if you're not interested in going to the park, check out the story. It's actually worth reading. And the final kind of tie-in comic book story that they released to tie into a world is they actually released a Star Wars Galaxy's Edge 5-issue mini-series that ties directly into the Batuu in the world of Galaxy's Edge. There's also a couple of different novels that tie into it, like Crash of Fate and another. The Crash of Fate's a young adult novel. There's an adult novel that ties into it too, which I'm blanking on at the moment, but I will include a graphic for that. And there is a lot of stuff that's really really cool about Batuu itself. They've worked it into some of the earlier canons too. Thrawn Alliances has a reference back to Batuu, and part of the story takes place on there. So they've really tried to integrate it as this thing. And one of the cool things about it is there's a lot of things to do in Batuu, and some of it's covered in the book too. So one of the restaurants in Galaxy's Edge is called Docking Bay 7. Docking Bay 7 happens to be a major focal point in the Crash of Fates book that I mentioned. So it's where the ships come and go. As you're eating there, you'll hear sounds of like the ships coming and going. Like they actually have noises for what the engines would sound like. So that's really cool. Another thing, especially in the comic book, that's huge is Doc Ondar's Den of Antiquities. That's one of the shops they have in there that you can go into, and you can purchase some cool things like the lightsaber hilts are in there, holocrons, kyber crystals, clothes, you name it. They have a lot of this stuff there, which is really really awesome. So it's cool to see some of the backstory there, like get a little bit of history on Doc Ondar, who I think is really cool. It's really really a fun thing, and the comics and the stories all kind of add to that world where you get really really excited to see some of the people running around in it. And like one of the people from the adult novel is Vi Marati, and they have her character going around inside of there sometimes, and she sticks out like sore thumb because she's got an orange jacket, blue hair, but she's a great character in the book. So like they tie it in that way. and it's just a really really fun world, and just to kind of get some of the extra history and backstory on like what Batu is planned to be. And even though they've gone a little bit away from like the theming and making it all like this one set time period, to be able to go into these places is really really cool. And to see the marketplace that they talk about in the comics and in the books is awesome. They did an amazing job immersing you in a Star Wars place with the way they did Galaxy's Edge and Batu, and it's awesome. And definitely check out the books, because I promise you that reading Cosmic Rewind, reading Mission Breakout, reading the web run, it's only 5 issues as well, and reading the Galaxy's Edge run will help enhance your experiences if you're going down there. And if you don't plan on going down there, read them anyway, because they're an awesome and really fun way of just experiencing something different that they tried to do, and taking in just some really fun stories. There's nothing about the stories that say you have to go visit Orlando or California or Paris, or I believe Shanghai has another Avengers campus either. So like, you don't have to go to these places to experience the full magnitude of the lands or the rides to enjoy the books. The books themselves stand on their own as well. So just kind of wanted to check in and give a little discussion on that. Keep an eye out. I'm going to go further into my trip to Disney with a look at both Galaxy's Edge and Mission Breakout. I'm also going to discuss building a lightsaber for the first time ever. I have some stuff and footage from that as well to share. Like I said, I don't like to spoil things. I'm going to share some of it, not all of it, because I don't want to ruin that experience for someone else who might want to go down there and do it. But it's worth it, so keep an eye out for that coming up too. And yeah, we'll catch you here next time. Thanks.